very significant event. Welcome to the book launch of Dr. Howard Nicholas's latest work titled Explorations in Marx's Theory of Price, Why Marx is Still Relevant for Understanding the Modern Economy. My name is Bata Peter.
And I'm Mithahasini Ratnayaka, and we will be your hosts for the evening. Dr. Howard Nicholas, our esteemed author, holds a position of Associate Professor in Economics at the International Institute of Social Studies, Erasmus University of Rotterdam, Netherlands. His latest work challenges predominant contemporary economic thought, delving into Marx's theory of price to showcase why Marx remains relevant for understanding the complexities of the modern economy.
Now, the idea of hosting a book launch that touches on such a critical aspect of economic thought was particularly interesting to us. While book launches aren't our usual forte, we, the Economic Students Association, came together to spearhead this initiative that we hope will foster further intellectual discourse on the topic.
And now, to represent the students of the Department of Economics, I would like to invite Shihara Pereira, President of the Economic Students Association, to deliver the welcome address.
Hello everyone, good evening all of you. Distinguished guests, esteemed faculty members, respected staff and my peers. As President of the Economic Students Association, and it's my distinct honor to welcome each one of you to this special occasion. The book launch of Dr. Howard Nicholas, a leader in the field of economics. Before we get into the heart of this event, let me extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guest, UBC Chairman, Professor Sambat Amatunkar, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, Professor H.D. Karunaratne, Head of the Department of Economics, Professor Chaluge, Professor Sinalaratne. Your presence here today clearly emphasizes the significance of this occasion, and we are deeply honored to have you amongst us. I also extend the welcome to all the students of the Economics Department, the vital minds, the intellectual energy of our academy, and the dedicated staffers who work tirelessly behind the scenes. Dr. Howard Nicholas' book is not just a publication. It's a beacon of knowledge that will only our path in the kingdom of things. As things all contribute to the world of economics, we wish to witness as a great discussion in his illustrious career. Let us use this gathering as an opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions, foster intellectual curiosity, and build connections that will shape our academic journey and lives.
University of Colombo event today.
collaboration with Economic Students Association. And Dr. Harvard Nicholas was one of the, I would say, a very valuable person to the Department of Economics. In early 1980s, he was in Sri Lanka, helping the department to develop itself. And what we are today is actually, and how we have evolved over the years, is due to his commitment, support, together with Professor Rashman. So as a result, the Department of Economics of the University of Colombo evolved and developed to this level. Intellectually, and number of students, candidates that are getting the audience, we learn economics and one resources in different fields. So organizing this event is actually a very important event for the Department of Economics. Especially, we are greatly indebted to Dr. Harvard Nicholas. So this is we have started repayment. Even before the government started repayment of debts, so the department has started the repayment. So we are actually privileged to do this, and once we heard that the book is free, and then we discussed also one of my teachers actually the initiative to organize this year, and of course this was last year due to an unavoidable situation, so we had to postpone it to this year. But the good is, and I heard that it is also available online through YouTube. So then it's not just few of us here, but a large audience is there. And I remember as an economics student some time ago, not very long time ago, because I'm not that old. Some time ago. And when Dr. Harvard Nicholas actually, when he came to teach us, and he actually, his characteristics is that he would take everything upside down. And we were wondering what we have done so far, and whether we have learned economics, or whether he's teaching something economics properly. So we were wondering what is actually happened to us after each lesson. So we were wondering. So that's how he is always when he's there. Some type of controversy. Last night I was looking, actually watching a YouTube discussion, four of you, including you and three other, and then I was wondering, so whether so he was giving a very different answers, and I was also thinking, so whether how this could be, and anyway, that's how Dr. Nicholas had been always trying to provide or looking at alternative views. That is what I think all this knowledge development is, that we have different views, and then finally we come to a consensus with all these views. So that's it from me. I think we are very happy, especially on behalf of our economic students, graduates, because this is a good opportunity for them to meet people of his caliber and diverse, different communities sitting together here, and that is for good for them to interact with each other and learn from each other, and to learn to organize these type of events Asia economic students meet. So the Department of Economics and the Columbia University actually hosted the event. So everything was conducted by our economic students. So they are the future. So then our responsibility is to give them the opportunity as much as possible. At the same time, we also learn as a residual activity. Thank you very much for your presence here, and let's enjoy the evening and see what Governor has written and see whether he's giving us a new way to think about our economies and the way we understand all these activities. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Alake. Now I would like to invite Professor Srimal Aviratna, former head of the Department of Economics, University of Colombo, who will introduce the session and set the tone for the rest of the evening. Professor Aviratna, the floor is yours.
Students. My task has been specified as introducing the book. It is not that easy to introduce the child like our who is not a state person who Sri Lanka. They will know about it, and not a stranger to Colombo University, and not a stranger at all to the Department of Economics. So, what should I say? I was thinking, so I was trying to remember everything that I some of the people who actually saw the title of the book might misunderstand that he is a socialist. And he has confirmed that he's not. And he's more capitalist than the neoclassical capitalist. Anyway, it was for the credit of two personalities that here Department of Economics, that is Dr. Marx and Dr. Harvard Nicholas. I remember the initiation of the UCISS project at the Department of Economics somewhere in, as I remember, 1987, which also lasted Department of Economics, its resources, its human resources, and initiating all these postgraduate programs and expanding the resource base as well as the intellectual of the Department of Economics. And we directly or indirectly we have all benefited from the department, even the students who are in India at the ISS. Congratulations. I know that he bring out examples and case studies not from NDIS but from Sri Lanka. He is a true Sri Lankan, not only by birth but also by heart. That's why he is here, and he has been here almost every year. And his son Ram is also a PhD candidate at the Department of Economics at the moment. So Harvard had the interesting couple of economic topics, subject areas: inflation, financial markets, global economic affairs, and also development economics. It's a different thinker, quite different from the mainstream thinkers in economics. We all know that. And in fact, when you read the title of the book also, you can understand it's about Marxist price theory, and it's not the first book that he launched. In fact, about 10 years ago, in 2012, as I remember, he launched the Marx theory of price and his modern rivals at the IPS auditorium, and I was there too at that time. I remember you mentioned there that it took 20 years for you to complete that book. So, I remember when we was writing about Marxism, my own experience in the Hague, that was in the early 1990s. I was looking for, because I had to refer to some of the Marxist writings, and I was looking for the English version of Das Kapital. And it was not available at the ISF library, and it was not available at the Free University of Amsterdam library. And finally, I found it at the public library in The Hague. So I went there, and then I borrowed it. And the lady who was dealing with this lending matter, and she told me, nowadays nobody reads this book. What are you going to do with this? In fact, there is a context in which what she said, because it is early 1990s, and the neighboring country, the Germany, had the unification, and also the Berlin Wall was fell down by people from both sides, and there was a unification of East and West Germany, and also at the same time, around that time, and there was a collapse of the Soviet Russia, and many countries went away from that alliance, and there were many Central Asian and East Asian countries, new nation states emerged, and the Eastern European countries also abandoned their socialist policy. So this socialism was collapsing in Europe. So during that time, in fact, that question was not a strange one. So among the value theory, which has long standing roots in classical, neoclassical, and post-Keynesian traditions. So I'm sure that Dr. Howard has found that it has a profound base in Marxism and not in any other traditions. So we will be, that's an inspiration for you to get hold on this new book. One last thing I want to mention. After coming back to Sri Lanka, completing my PhD, that was early 2000, and Howard was also coming almost every year to Sri Lanka. And also he was giving lectures here and there, the business communities, and they used to pay a huge amount of money to listen to him, all those lectures. So I used to talk to him and get him here to Columbia University, and to speak to our students. I remember Nandika was there in one of those lectures. I want to give you the gist of just the title of that lecture. Then you will understand he is not an economist who can analyze the past. He has the foresight. He has the forecasting ability what is going to happen in the world economy, because it's global economic affairs, that is also one of his favorite areas. And he came and delivered that lecture for the postgraduate students in one weekend. Janandika was sitting there in the audience, I remember, and believe me, the title of that, it was in 2004. The title of the lecture, which was about 2 hour lecture, was The Coming US Crisis. Right? Okay. So he said that in conclusion, I don't know whether it is today or tomorrow or next year or the year after, but very soon, within a couple of years' time, you will see that the US is going to crash the economy. And it happened in 2009, just 4 years later. And the whole world got suffered from that. And that's the kind of intellectual foresight that Harvard has, being an economist. So with that remark, it is an honor for us, for our economics department and the Student Economic Association to have a prestigious occasion like this, to launch this book here at the Department of Economics in the University of Colombo. It's a privilege for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Abhiratna, for that insightful introduction. Now, I am honored to invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne, to share his thoughts and offer some words on the significance of this event. Let's welcome him warmly.
Very good afternoon, our Guru, Professor W. Lakshman, sir, and Dr. Howard Nicholas, all other distinguished invitees, my friend, Professor Sampath Abhiratna, and it gives me great pleasure as the Vice Chancellor here to address you, because it's a very important event. In a university, the book launch is one of the most important events, because that brings new knowledge to the society. In fact, we were benefited from you, sir, because we were in the first batch of MA in Economics program in the Department of Economics. And I can remember that there were about 24 enrollment, but only 5 completed in the first time, in the first batch in 1991. So that, of course, I was lucky to learn from Professor Howard Nicholas, because he taught us macroeconomics and international trade. I can remember these 2 subjects he was teaching at that time. And not only that, the Professor W. Lakshman's leadership to the department brought the university into the different level even today. Why the Colombo University is in different level today as the best university in Sri Lanka. You know that the University of Colombo is the #1 ranking university, because our postgraduate education expanded after this Professor W. Lakshman's and Dr. Nicholas project. And very recently, January, we had the largest postgraduate convocation where we awarded 4,350 postgraduate degrees, including 50 PhDs and 512 MDs, the Doctor of Medicine also. So the University of Colombo is the only university having 12,000 postgraduate students in Sri Lanka. And our undergraduate students, 16,000. I think very soon our postgraduate student number will be more than the undergraduate students. That initiation has done by Professor W. Lakshman and Dr. Nicholas. And of course, we know everyone talk about the Department of Economics, sustainability and the development. Of course, the most richest department in the faculty, and they are very well handling. They are practical economists. So all these things we learn from you. So this kind of book is very useful, and it is a good example for our senior lecturers and the others also. At least a couple of books produced a couple of years. So I don't want to take much time. Thank you very much for inviting us and launching this book. We are always with you, sir. We are the happiest
people to read this book as your student. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senior Professor Karunaratne. As a token of our appreciation, we'd like to present you with a copy of the book, and I'd like to invite Dr. Nicholas to present it. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a figure of influence and expertise. We are privileged to have the chairman of the University Grants Commission with us here today. I would like to invite him to share his reflections on the event. Ladies and gentlemen, let's extend a warm welcome to Professor Sampath Amarathunga.
Dr. Howard Nicholas, Mrs. Nicholas, Professor W.D. Lakshman, Vice Chancellor, just now went to another function, I hope. Academia, of course, President Secretary and Honorable Yadamini Gunawana, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank the Department of Economics inviting me for this wonderful occasion. So you taught me more than 30 years ago. Yes. And Professor Amar, you too. Taught us is your ways, qualities. And again you taught us, even when you have this acquaintance, you get into a small acquaintance. So I started teaching business calculations at the business faculty. Finding literature was the most difficult because in American finance books never ever touch this Marxian fluctuations of business. Very little, even if you have. Not only that, still I can remember, even though it is 33 years ago, the impact of crisis impact on society. You said clearly the alcoholism of the society will increase. And you said child abuse in a society when you have a crisis can increase. It's what you know happening today. Right? And I submitted an article to the graduate faculty of Frida. The topic was Karl Marx in business. What you exactly taught us. So that was, rejected. Then I came to know Hawaiian PhD, the reviewer, totally rejected the article. So inside was Das Kapital, Volume 3. So here in Sri Lanka, maybe only at University of Colombo, Department of Economics can understand and consider those as publications. So when you taught us this capitalism and issues and problems inside, you always refer to the Marxian thinking, and thereby you elaborated issues. So I'm sure the book, most of the people won't understand. Yes, you have to read more, definitely, to understand this. But anyway, this is, I think, the timely, important publication. So we actually, the belief is, without knowing the Marxian, the theory, you won't be able to give a solution for the crisis. Because crisis was studied by Marxians, not by capitalists. So this, I don't think anyone can understand what is inside. So I know you love Sri Lanka than any other country in the world. And Dr. Chris Edwards, you said your teacher, taught us by using his own book, Fragmented World, like during the class. I really enjoyed myself, everybody. And when Professor Lakshman visited me when I'm doing my PhD, so he's asking me, why you are scared to talk to me? I said, the way you behave at our classes, how can we, he used to give us, minus marks. If you have 80, then okay, sometimes you get minus 80 also. Right? So you just think about exactly what Karu mentioned is correct. So very difficult to pass. So we have named this course at once as MA in Engineering, because Dr. Pratap Ramanujam and all others, they come and try to teach us the mathematics. So these are from my memories. But you have done the foundation for thinking of analytics in economics. So thank you very much, sir. Definitely we will go through what you have written. Those are treasures, definitely. Actually, you have to speak to the public as well. What you have mentioned 3-4 years ago at Institute of Chartered Accounting, that we need development banking, right? Still, we don't have a development bank in the country. So those are the things actually we need to consider in future to come out from the crisis. Anyway, I believe now some kind of stability is there compared to 2 years ago, and hope for the betterment and development as well. Wish you all the best, you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samudra. To extend our gratitude to the UGC chairman, I'd like to once again invite Dr. Nicholas to present a copy of his book.
share his insights on the philosophical economic foundations and a past student, close associate and friend of Dr. Nicholas. Mr. Ponsu, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to everyone here, and it's a pleasure to be in this forum talking a few things about a student's experience with a lecturer and a guru like Howard Nicholas. We used to fondly call him Howard. That's the first interaction we had with him. When we call him sir, he said, "I'm not sir, I'm Howard," simple as that. So that really opened up a kind of a conversation from the word go. The very first experience has been, from an academic point of view, is that I remember I was a student in the MA, and he was teaching macroeconomics. There was a book, textbook, which was recommended by the university and also in collaboration with the ISS. He said this book is wrong, so that was very confusing to us as we came to learn economics, because people like me who come from entirely different field. I come from sciences, and it was very different experience to say that some of these concepts are flowed in the way they are being presented. One thing I remember very distinctly is that when he was teaching international economics, he was talking about, there's a theory called relative factor endowment, which is basically, for the audience of general public, is that if you have some resource in abundance, that resource should be exploited as an advantage. Now this is the kind of theory that is accepted and discussed in many circles. And for me, I found it very logical, very scientific. But Howard's position was, this was not the case. This principle of comparative advantage, in fact, is not what made some of the success stories today, especially East Asian countries. So it was very mind-boggling and very intriguing to have this kind of conversations from the very early stages. What I find interesting in the latter stages was that his interaction and his predictions about what is happening in the world and our economy as well. Now this is where he has been a contrarian and also making very different points of view from the general audience or general academia or general economists, so to speak of. I remember during the time, I think it was in late 1990s, first half of 1990s, when we were selling the development banks in Sri Lanka, privatization of development bank. His contention was that was an absolutely big mistake. Now that kind of thinking, that kind of argument really enriched us to think beyond the paradigms of economics, beyond the paradigms of conventional economics. So it brought us into think differently, think out of the box, think beyond the assumptions that are prevailing. Same can be said about the present situation. There is a widespread theory about what this crisis, why it has happened, how this should be gotten over. And Howard's point of view, and it was the kind of very, I would say, a leadership in giving a different thought that this analysis is flawed, these solutions are flawed, and this requires a very different standpoint. Now, that kind of conversations gave students like us a very challenging perspectives and also very supportive perspectives to tag on and make our own discussions as well. So this is the kind of interactions we had as a student with Harvard in the past. And also, what I remember is that, what I always experience is that when I have a chat with Harvard, you go home thinking a lot about this issue. It's just a reflective thought that keeps on and on, never-ending, as a never-ending process. I learned a lot. Now, I'm a teacher myself. I learned a lot from his way of explanation, his way of thinking, his way of counterintuitive thinking, and also expressing that and sharing that with our students, our younger generations, to think differently and also think out of the box. And these are the few points I would like to share with here. I must say that my little presentation is about students' perspective. But before me spoke about it, the ones who spoke are all students as well. So they have basically done the job a lot easier for me because they have covered much what has to be said about Harvard. My last point is that Harvard never gives up. When he takes a position, when he sees that something has to be said, and he really says it in public. Now that leadership has given us a new dimension as academics, as teachers, as responsible citizens of this country, take leadership, educate in public, educating our young generation to share new thoughts of view. With that little note, I congratulate Howard for all the efforts he is making. Of course, his book is very difficult to digest. I tried it several times. I go back to the beginning and find that, okay, I have missed something again. I don't go back again. So it's a bit hard, and I sometimes think, okay, how on earth you have sort of got these ideas formulated and put into a book and present it in a manner that he has done. So it's all congratulations to you, Howard, and thanks so much for being with us, and thank you for deciding to launch this book in this university, Colombo University, at the Department of Economics. Good night to you all.
Thank you, Mr. Afonso. As we delve deeper into the complexities of economic thought, it is an honor to introduce our next speaker, Professor W.D. Lakshman, the former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and a former vice chancellor of the University of Colombo. His extensive knowledge and experience will shed light on the importance of critical thought and the history of economics. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Howard, Nicholas, my friends, colleagues, and students. It is indeed good to be back in a classroom setting in these premises, University of Colombo, where I spent, I think, a little more than 25 years teaching and academic administration. The place is very different, of course, from the time I was here. Some people mentioned that some of these changes started during the period I was here, subject to debate. Anyway, for me, those were the halcyon days of the University of Colombo. Today, conditions are very different. And maybe for my judgment, maybe for I stand before you on the request of Dr. Nicholas. He wanted me to say a few words on his book launch here today. He suggested that I speak about alternative streams of thought encountered in the historical evolution and current teachings in economics. I accepted the request, thinking that the suggested topic is very topical and would be of interest to many in the audience. The audience being an audience to listen to presentations at a book launch on Marx. But upon further reflection, I considered the potential monotony that might accompany a direct exploration of the subject of historical evolution of the economic thought in this audience. An audience not bound by any compulsion to follow me to succeed in any impending examination. As one could guess from the former speaker, the chairman of the University Grants Commission, Sampath, he was in one of these audiences for a subject which I used to teach at the time. Any suggestion of such an exercise here, that is discussion bordering on the history of economic thought, is indeed reminiscent to me of students in my formal undergraduate and graduate classes in history and philosophy of economic thought. And also later on in post-Keynesian economics. Instead, I thought of making a presentation here based on reminiscences of my days first as undergraduate student in the 1960s and later as teacher in economics. I thought to embark on this journey down memory lane could be very fitting exercise here. Let me reflect upon how the visionaries who paved the way for economics teaching in our country had visualized how economics teaching ought to develop here. This is a subject I expounded upon in greater detail in my 2007 convocation address in the University of Colombo. And later also examined this subject in a paper which I have contributed to the UGC history of university education in this country. My undergraduate studies included courses in European economic history. As one of our contemporaries here, Lakshman Sirwal, I could remember, European economic history with special reference to the UK, and a course in political science. Most importantly, I read and later taught courses in the history of economic thought. Among the three specialization courses we read for our special degree in economics. There was one in monetary theory, which happened to be largely a classroom study, or virtually classroom reading and study, of Keynes's general theory from a comparative perspective under Professor Tedious Gunasekar. And there was another course in the history of banking in England. In our special degree course, we had full 2 years without absolutely any examination work prepared. The multifaceted foundation we received as undergraduates unfortunately seemed to be lacking in today's economics curriculum. Our finals consisted of just 9 3-hour examination papers, all requiring essay-type answers. Students specializing in economics nowadays in any university in this country do not have such multidisciplinary and broad subject coverage, nor do they have during the undergraduate days kind of free time we had as students for reading, reflection, and debate on what is being studied. Fast forward to the late 1980s, when Howard and I collaborated in designing the first Master of Economics course offered in the University of Columbia. We decided to include the course on historical and philosophical foundations of economics for the MA in economics we were planning. My recollection is that the MA was to incorporate altogether 5 courses to be taught in 2 years on a part-time basis in the evenings and weekends. All candidates were expected to be working students, naturally subject to many constraints on finding time to study. The above course, which we abbreviated as HPFE, was to be taught by me, and it was with great enthusiasm that I undertook that task. As you would understand, HPFE came to be a course which tried to give students a very welcome multidisciplinary overview of the subject they were trying to master, but at the same time, a formidable challenge for many students. As a few of you here would remember, and also our UGC chairman recollected during his presentation. But at the same time, a formidable challenge for many students. Those which most students feared immensely, and only a very few performed above average. Sadly, the subject has been dropped from the MA curriculum in a few years after my resignation from the university. So, you will remember my reluctance here to talk to you exclusively on alternative streams of thought in the evolution of economics, although that was what Howard expected from me. Marxian economics, from among these alternative streams of thought, has fascinated many of us in university in the 60s, not merely because of our affiliation to a socialist political party with Marxist leanings. The fascination to learn some Marxist theory also stemmed from its profound analytical insights into the workings of the capitalist system. I remember participating in the fascinating political classes of Doric D'Souza, a well-known Trotskyite professor in English. Classes held in the evenings at his campus house for LSSP associated undergraduates. Unfortunately, I could not make myself read Marxian texts directly during these university days, for whatever reason. Difficult style, length of books involved, not being made compulsory reading, etc. As many contemporaries would have done, I too depended on Poland's Sweezy's theory of capitalist development to learn elements of Marxian theory. In addition, to learn selected topics in Marxian analysis, I depended on Lenin, Paul Baran, Maurice Dobb, Harry Magdoff, Leo Huberman, Günter Frank, Samir Ali, etc., etc. Maybe I would have added Howard Nicholas to this list had his book on Marxian theory of prices, books on Marxian theory of price and capitalist crisis been available then. I feel sad that I did not try to advance the knowledge I gained in Marxian theory in my formative years in undergraduate studies and early teaching at higher education academic levels. I am so very impressed by the state of academic dominance and prominence, how it had preached in Marxian theory and its use in analyzing the behavior of financial capitalism today. Maybe his PhD supervisor, our mutual friend, Chris Edwards, formerly of East Anglia, had encouraged our going that direction. I remember Howard telling me, even as long ago as in the 1980s, of his book writing passion. At that time, I believe it was presentation of his PhD thesis for preparation of his PhD thesis for publication. I do not know whether he completed that task, but when he invited me several years ago to the launch of his book on Marxian theory of pricing, Colombo, I could see the grand academic project he had engaged in 4 decades. By launching this second in the series of his books on Marxian theory, he promises us to produce 2 more books on the same lines within the next couple of years. His dedication reflected in this launch of multiple books and the promise of more to come speaks volumes about the depth of this academic pursuit, intellectual pursuit. It has taken decades for incubation. Enabling him to finish writing up quickly. Howard is valued personal friend and friend of Sri Lanka, the country of his birth, country of his parents, the country which he himself believes his own. I wish Howard continued health and creativity on this odyssey of reinventing Marx. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lakshmi. Now, it wouldn't be a book launch if we didn't hear from the author, would it? As such, it is my privilege to invite Dr. Howard Nicholas to share his thoughts and tell us why this topic is significant and relevant to today. Dr. Nicholas, the stage is yours.
thank you, University of Colombo, for inviting me to do the book launch here. I have to especially thank the student group. You may not realize it, but it's hours, days of effort that they put in to get this launch underway. So I thank them a lot. And I also thank them for putting up with Indrajit, because he has driven them. I think this guy should be in business, isn't it? I mean, we make a great manager because he's been driving them. But I think they also enjoyed it, didn't you? It's good fun. And I thank all those who made presentations and uttered so many kind words about me. These have been friends and fellow travelers for such a long time yeah, I just am so grateful to them for having the privilege to work with them. Well, it is indeed a long journey, and I'd like to say this book is a continuation of the past work that I did, the first book that I presented in 2011, but it's not. That book in 2011 was a personal thing to me, because there have been so many criticisms of Marxist economics from all quarters, including from within the Marxist fraternity. And I wanted to convince myself that it was worthwhile continuing down this road. And that was what that book was about. Technically, it was about whether the transformation problem in Marxist economics was severely damaging to him. So that's a sort of inside thing for all Marxists. If I say transformation problem, Marxists know what I'm talking about. Others have no clue. So I needed to convince myself that what happened to me in that process of writing the book is I realized there were two things that we have not properly addressed in the Marxist literature. The first, the most important, is the theory of money. And then the excuse given is, well, Marx didn't really leave a theory of money behind. That may be, and it's not so easy to extract the theory of money from Marx's work, but without it, Marx's theory of prices is not complete. So that was the task I set myself in the first book. The second book, which I'm writing at the moment, is the theory of profit, which actually no other approach has a proper theory of profit. Marx is the only one that has that. And the last book, the third book, is the theory of world money, exchange rates, and world prices. So those are the three books that I've been contracted to do by Macmillan's. When I say things like this, my family laugh, because they say, well, it took you 40 years to write the first one. You know, what's your age now? And, you know, are you going to take another 40 years? You know, so, of course, I couldn't write this book without having completed the other two books in principle, which is what I've done. In principle, doesn't mean to say it's easy for me to put them down on paper, but I hope it's not going to be as long a process as this one. This presentation is not about what is in the book. For that, I would need you to stay here for a few weeks, you know, and I'll bring you food and drink and all of that. No. I want to highlight its significance. There's very important significance, and I'm about to write 2 more articles on it, 2 for the newspapers and 2 in journals. And the significance comes on the back of what has been happening in the central banks of the Western countries. It has to do with something called the quantity theory of money. that argument I've been having in Sri Lanka for such a long time. Amala, you remember, isn't it? I think so many people remember it from the early 1990s when I first helped set up with Dr. Fernando, the Institute of Policy Studies. We were having lots of arguments about this. Printing money causes inflation is the mantra. Printing money causes inflation. It underlies everything that the IMF advises to every country in the world. Okay? So this is what is at stake. That everything the IMF recommends, also what they've recommended to us now, is based on this one theory. But you know what has happened? Do you know what has happened? The central banks of the advanced countries have now come out and said, it is wrong. This theory is wrong. Okay, let me just be very precise on this, because it has ramifications for all of us. We have people advising the current president who have also gone back on their arguments, which they were actually in this room. They were presenting those arguments that printing money causes inflation. Then they wrote an article in response to my son and me, in which there is one sentence where they say categorically that quantity theory is dead. Sorry, can I repeat this to all of you? The quantity theory of money is dead. What the hell are we doing listening to the IMF? You know, these guys with all their Nobel Prize winners advising them, they've got it wrong. They've got it wrong for a long, long time. And now they're stating it officially. I'm going to complete it by saying this. In 2021, Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, says to the US Senate, it is no longer true that printing money causes inflation. Why? Because the West has been printing for nearly 15 years. Where's the inflation? Inflation fell. The only time it rose was when oil prices rose. So he had no choice but to say, when I was young, we were taught the quantity theory. Now we know it's wrong and we have to relearn a new economics. Sorry, let me repeat this to all of you. We have to relearn a new economics. I don't hear any apologies to all of us who's doubted this quantity theory. I don't hear anyone apologizing. In fact, we've lost out. I couldn't publish an article in a journal. Do you remember, Lakshman, Lloyd, do you remember how Dr. T ridiculed us when he said, oh, my job is so easy now, Howard. According to you, I can print any amount of money I want, no inflation. Do you remember that? That was one of the first conferences. Even recently, in your own institute, people ridiculed. But that is because it's so easy for everyone to say, printing money causes inflation. It's a mantra. If I go and take a tuk-tuk somewhere, what do you think the tuk-tuk driver says? Printing money causes inflation. It's one of the most important ideological things that stuck in our head. But it's wrong. It's wrong, and everyone knows it's wrong. You know who prints money and causes inflation? The commercial banks. But we don't want to say that. It's not that they print money and cause inflation. Actually, they extend credit and cause inflation. But in any case, this thing, the central bank prints money. That increases what we call the money stock. That is all the deposits you have with the commercial banks. That in turn causes you to spend more money, and that causes inflation. So that's what we've been teaching everyone for a very long time. For a very long time. But that's wrong. It's wrong for me, for reasons, but let me give you the 2 reasons that the central banks of the advanced countries have come up with. The first thing is when a commercial bank, so I'm focusing on that money stock, that is deposits with commercial banks, deposits with commercial banks. So when that rises, you spend more money, okay? When a commercial bank gives a loan to someone, the first thing they do is they put money in your account, in your deposits. So who is increasing the quantity of money? It's the commercial banks. Finally, we have the governor, the famous governor, Mervyn King of the Bank of England, saying when commercial banks extend loans, they increase the money stock. So that's the first criticism. So it's not the central bank printing cash and giving it to the commercial banks which causes the increase in the money stock. It's the reverse. That it's the commercial banks making loans, increasing the money stock, and then what happens is they go to the central bank and ask for cash to meet what is called cash ratios. The central bank has to accommodate, it has no choice. That's the second criticism. That the central bank never controls the quantity of cash, never has done. Never has done. Listen to that. Listen to my words. Never has done. Yet the rubbish we have taught everyone is central bank controls cash, that causes money stock to rise, that causes more expenditure, that causes inflation. It's really strange, isn't it? And yet now the central banks of the advanced countries all agree. I've been in arguments, many of you know it, isn't it, with Indrajit Kumaraswamy, Shamini Kuri, Chanta Devaraj, we've been having these debates. All of them I like a lot. I respect them a lot. So they're not unusual in this. But this belief, it's a religious belief. Printing money causes inflation. I was taught this. They were taught this. And the problem is they have made a life mission to expound this. But now they realize that all these people in all the central banks in the advanced countries, and it was like extracting blood from a stone to get them to read these central bank sites. But somehow, finally, they have read it, and they now understand that the quantity theory, which they were expounding before, is dead. So this is no longer true. But I have another target. And this is the target. This is the significance of my book. It's not this. I've been arguing this for a long time, and I don't agree with the limited criticisms that the central banks have done. You know where the problem is? Your textbooks. From page 1, the textbooks are wrong. Sorry, I'm now going to say, I will say for the next 20, 30 years, as long as I'm alive, they are wrong. And I dare anyone to have a debate with me on it. I dare anyone in Sri Lanka, and I dare anyone worldwide, because they cannot justify the textbooks not having a quantity theory. So when you are taught supply and demand in the textbooks, you end up with a quantity theory of money. And I'll tell you why. With my next slide, I keep going back and forth. Good exercise. You saw that previous, I don't want to go back and forth again. Okay, so we've all seen that, isn't it? This cross, supply, demand. We've all seen that. That's how every textbook starts. What they haven't told you is that's not explaining a money price. It's explaining what we call a relative price. This is a pair of shoes for rice. 10 kilos of rice. One pair of shoes, 10 kilos of rice. So it's 1 to 10. Okay? What you're taught is where are prices determined? In the market. Do you remember this? Okay, so those of you who have done economics. Very important what I'm about to say. Prices determined in the market. Only academics understand that. Business people say this is nonsense. I set the price before I put the good in the market. There's no such thing as prices being determined in the market. So the price we see is how many pairs of shoes do we need to get 10 kilos of rice? Or the other way around, how many kilos of rice do we need to buy 1 pair of shoes? So what they're saying in the textbooks is shoes are exchanged for rice. And how they're exchanged is we use money to facilitate the exchange. We say money is a medium of exchange. Now, the more money you put into the system, the higher the money prices of all the goods. Money price of shoes, you can see rise. Money price of rice rises. When we put more money to facilitate this exchange, you see? In other words, quantity theory. You see, the textbooks lead you to the quantity theory of money. They can't escape because they start by saying the price is determined in the market on the basis of the exchange of one commodity for another. When I say that, I end up with that quantity theory of money. I can't escape it. The only way you escape it is you have to abandon the textbook economics. That's the only way. Now, you know what the central bankers like Mervyn King have said? Even though the quantity theory is wrong, we must keep the textbooks for pedagogic purposes. Listen to what they're saying. They know what I say is correct. They know the textbooks that we use to teach you are rubbish. But we are teaching it for pedagogic purposes. What do they mean, pedagogic purposes? Ideology, brainwashing. I need to brainwash my economic students so that they don't have a brain, so that when the IMF comes to your country, they can ride all over you. They just want you to use models, okay? Not understand what you are saying and doing. You know? Now you're listening to me at the moment and you're thinking, is he from Harvard or Yale or something? If he's not from Harvard and Yale, can't be right, can he? Supposing a Harvard guy comes onto the stage and says, that guy's a moron. Who would you believe, that guy or me? You believe the Harvard economist, isn't it? Of course. Published lots of articles, he's head of this association, that association. But you are not able to use your brain. You are not able to use your brain because they haven't given you the tools. You see, this is the problem. We go to the next slide. So this is what I teach. In my courses, this is what I teach. Prices are determined before the goods are put into the market. They're determined by the producer. Why? Because if the producer does not set prices to recover costs, they will go bankrupt. So they must always set a price to cover costs and make a profit. And they always set a money price. A money price. They use money, the first and most important function of money is we use it to set prices. That is Marx's theory and only Marx. There's no one else says that. Marx calls it the measure of value. The measure of value. So once the price is set, they put the good into the market, then We use debit cards, we use cash, we use bank transfers, but we also use credit, don't we? Notice, I'm using lots of different tools to move the commodities around. Liability side and asset side, if you like, the technical details. I also use sometimes Bitcoin, don't I? You know, that's what we're saying now. But the most important thing is the good is, the price is already determined before it's put into the market. So in other words, there's no quantity of money determining price. And the price is based on costs plus profit. This is really important. Now with the neoclassical orthodox approach, the aggregate price level, the inflation is quantity of money. I ask a neoclassical, if oil prices rise, do we get inflation? They have to say no. There's only one thing that causes inflation, quantity of money. But if I ask a Marxist, if oil prices rise, do I get inflation? Yes, because it's costs that determine prices. You get the point, isn't it? So here is a very important conclusion. What caused the rise in inflation? I asked a Marxist. Oil prices, raw material prices, that's what caused that. I ask a neoclassical, they have to say the government printing money. But what about all that printing of money that took place from 2009 to 2021? Where was the inflation? That is what J. Powell had to admit, that all of that printing of money never led to inflation. So technically, they should be looking for an alternative theory of price, which then means all textbooks have to be rewritten. You can't have that supply-demand analysis any longer. Now, I'm going to end now. Don't worry. We're all tired. Need some refreshments. What is the academic significance? I grew up at the time, went to university at the time where models were just starting. Econometric analysis was just starting. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of models with fancy statistical techniques, all suggesting printing money causes inflation. How many Nobel Prizes have been given? How many professors do you know have written thousands of articles and become professors on the basis of what we now admit is a wrong theory? How did they become professors? Quantity analysis, models, mathematics. It gives the illusion of scientific rigor. It gives the illusion of science. But the brain is not working. We do not look at the concepts we are using. It's actually the same. What is the market? You know how often we hear, let the market work? What nonsense are they talking? Let the market work means that people must be exchanging goods with each other in the market. This is wrong. What happens in the market is producers who have set prices of goods try and sell their goods in the market. That's what happens in the market. Not what is in the textbooks. What is in the textbooks is a myth. It has always been a myth. We sell it because we put it in mathematics and nobody understands what is actually being written there. So the first point is we have to get back to the conceptual approaches to economics. We have to understand the words we are using. What is money and what does it do? If you don't understand that, you get everything wrong. You know? It's a plea for stopping with this nonsense econometrics. You know, nowadays, if you don't do something with econometrics, you can't get published. So this is my problem. All you young people here, you want to get promoted, isn't it? Well, my advice to you to get promoted is find out what the professor wants you to do and do it. Okay? And it's usually build a model. In other words, strip yourself of any intelligence whatsoever for a while until you become a professor yourself. Okay? Because this is utter nonsense. We know they have taught nonsense. But do you think any professor is going to say, actually, I'm giving up my professorship because I was wrong? All the articles I wrote were wrong. Okay? Nobody's ever going to do that. In the second book, we are going to focus on what is capital and what is profit. And I will be saying the same thing at the next book launch as well, if Colombo University invites me. May not, you might be closed down after this. What has happened is there's been this brilliant marketing campaign. You know it, isn't it? I mean, if you look at all these prestigious universities, you look at the economists, and you look at the fanfare around them. You know, it's glitz. It's like Hollywood. It's a big show, isn't it? I'm a very important person. You guys are all plebs, basically. You know, it's that type of attitude. They also avoid debates. Have you noticed? Debates have gone in all the universities. I tell people, you're lucky to be living in Sri Lanka. I mean it, because it's one of the last places in the world where you still have debates. You know, I was on Face the Nation the other day, and on several other occasions, fighting it out with people who are opposed to me. I love that, because it's a debate, it's an exposure of views. It makes me stronger. I hope it makes my opponents stronger. But would you get that in other countries? No, it's disappeared, because these academics, the prestigious academics, they're frightened of exposing their arguments. They're frightened. They don't want to expose their arguments. And what has happened is they build this castle around them. And remember, they control your destiny. Trust me, you criticize your professors in those universities, you're not going to go very far. You write an article with no econometrics and no mathematics, you're not going to go very far. Because now we have descended to the level of mediocrity. The people who are running these are very mediocre people with absolutely no theoretical knowledge whatsoever. You try and engage them in a debate on money, impossible. They don't know the first thing about the concepts they're using. I hope we use books like mine and hoping other books come out. It is difficult. And my offer to Indrajit, he said, you can't just leave us in the lurch like this. You better come back and give a 3-hour session and let everyone interrogate you. Okay, so that's my offer to people here in the university, especially the students. You know, I'm offering to do that here, to continue the debate, to actually try and move that type of thinking forward. So it's not the end. And of course, without having bought my book, you can't enter the debate. Okay? It's always the way, isn't it? Corrupt academics are trying to flog their book to everybody and make a buck out of it. Okay, thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Dr. Howard Nicholas, for sharing your expertise, thoughts, and perspectives with us. They were truly intriguing and eye-opening, to say the least. Dr. Nicholas, if you could remain with us for a few moments. The culmination of this event is made even more special as we present copies of books to key individuals who have all played significant roles in contributing to this event. Please be kind enough to come up and receive your copy when you are invited to. A token of appreciation
now we invite Dr. Lloyd Fernando. Thank you for being with us here today. Thank you. We extend our gratitude to Professor Dr. Bachman for your contribution and presence at this event.
Next, I'd like to call upon Mr. Srivatsan. Thank you for coming. Lastly, Professor Leonis, appreciation goes to Professor Chandra K, the head of the Department of Economics. Thank you for introducing me. As we come to the end of this presentation, I would invite Vinity and Lamudi, the Secretary of the Economic Students Association, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, distinguished guests. As we have come to the end of the evening, it's time to extend our gratitude to all the amazing individuals. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the Chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka. Thank you, sir, for gracing this occasion with your presence. Secondly, Professor H.D. Karunaratne, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, for your leadership and commitment for academic excellence. And we should also like to thank Senior Professor Lasantha Manavaru, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo, and Professor Chandana Lutke, Head of the Department of Economics, Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo, for being cooperative with our requests and supporting us throughout the organizing process. A heartfelt thank you to Professor W.D. Lakshman and Professor Sirima Aberatna for attending today's event and sharing your valuable thoughts with us. And Dr. Nicholas, thank you for trusting us with the launching of your book. We are grateful for the opportunity given to us. We are also grateful for the continuous support of the faculty members and the staff of the Department of Economics, which has been crucial in making this event a success. A special acknowledgement to the organizing committee of the Economic Students Association. Their tireless dedication has been pivotal in ensuring the smooth execution of this event. Once again, thank you to all the distinguished guests and participants in attendance today. Your presence has made the event a resounding success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. We are now reaching the conclusion of what has been an excellent and intellectually stimulating event. On behalf of the Department of Economics, we'd like to extend our heartfelt congratulations to Dr. Howard Nicholas for the launch of his book and his contribution to the field of economics. Your dedication to scholarship is truly commendable. And speaking on behalf of the students here, I'm sure Dr. Nicholas, we would love to have you again to share more of your views, as it was very eye-opening and very interesting. We are truly honored to have hosted this event for you.
To our distinguished guests and spirited audience, we hope Dr. Howard's contribution will serve as a catalyst for invigorating discussions and critical reflections on the knowledge you know and gain in the future. Kindly know that copies of the book will be available for purchase outside. Thank you all for gracing this occasion with your presence. There are refreshments available outside, so please feel free to help yourselves. Once again, I'm Nita Hasini Ratnayaka.
And I'm Bhatia Keita, and it has been a pleasure to be your host this evening. Thank you, and have a good day.